We have seen questions raised about the threat of conspiracy theorists in the wake of that shocking police shooting in the remote Queensland town. Let's bring in Prof Barton now. He's a professor in global Islamic politics at the Deakin Institute for Globalisation and Citizenship. Greg, I'm keen for your take on this. Does this event illustrate to you that conspiracy theorists do pose an increasing risk to our society?
Yeah, actually, I think we don't know the full details yet, so there's that caveat. Conspiracy theory appears to have played an element in this behaviour. Most conspiracy theorists don't end up resorting to violence, thankfully, but it can happen. We are hearing other factors about frankly, personality disorders, the older brother Gareth, very controlling personality, an environment that suggests domestic violence potentially. So add to that conspiracy theory of a particular kind that sees the government as illegitimate and sees police as particularly worthy of being targeted, then you get a nasty cocktail that results in a perfect storm. So most conspiracy theorists, thankfully, don't go this route, but the danger is there.
And Greg, just how difficult is it for our authorities to distinguish between those who might be saying crazy things online and those who do pose a real risk? I mean, there are these reports just today that a conspiracy group online is praising these murderers, calling for others to take up arms. I mean, it's seriously sick stuff. How do the authorities go about weeding out the crazy stuff as to what is the dangerous stuff?
Look, firstly, it's hard and it takes a lot of work, and that's why we keep hearing from the authorities, from ASIO, from AFP, that they're spending a lot of time behind the scenes. They may have lowered the national terrorism alert level, but they're working harder than ever because of this very reason, trying to sift through who's big talking and saying rubbish and who actually might go from that to doing something dangerous. Remember, the Christchurch Australian terrorist back in 2019 was in those sort of forums saying those sort of crazy, hateful things, then went on to murder 51 people. Different conspiracy theories than appear to be the case involved here, but they do overlap. And so that is the concern. You can hear a lot of people saying things that are very concerning, and sometimes you see concerning behaviour, but at what point do you intervene? How do you work out what the risk is?
And how strong is that link between those different conspiracy theory groups, between anti-vaxxers, for example, anti-government, anti-lockdown groups? We've seen groups describing themselves as being anti-government sovereign citizens. How strong is that link?
Well, the sovereign citizen movement came out of America in the early 1970s, so it's half a century ago. The recent arrests in Germany of the so-called Reichsbürger network is a similar kind of German manifestation of sovereign citizens. A lot of people we think are sovereign citizens in Australia don't want to wear that label because they don't like the government imposing things upon them. But it appears to be that conspiracy was involved in the mindset in this case. Prior to the pandemic, we didn't see a lot of overlap, although if you think about the Oklahoma City bombing, that in 1996, that had a link with the sovereign citizen background. Timothy McVeigh was at some stage dabbling in sovereign citizenship and white supremacy. So that overlap has gone back a little bit. Through the pandemic, though, people who are sceptical of governments, angry with lockdowns, anxious about work, started to spend time online going down rabbit holes, and then they would meet up in some cases with literal neo-Nazis and white supremacists, even though that's not where they started from. Sometimes they marched in the street with people they thought were of the like mind, but actually those street lockdown protests had a strange mix, and some of the elements, the minority elements, were extremely dangerous. So the pandemic accelerated things, brought together people who otherwise probably wouldn't have had contact, and that's a particular concern for authorities.